Welcome to video number 6, where I'm going to be giving you some tips and tricks on how to be a good interviewer. There are always two important people in any interview, an interviewer and an interviewee. This video is specifically designed for the interviewer who will be conducting the interview and prompting questions and ideas to the interviewee who will then answer them. There are certain rules and tips the interviewer should follow in order to conduct a good interview. The first thing you need to do as an interviewer is to understand why someone would want to be interviewed in the first place. Now, some of you watching this right now have watched the other 5 videos in this series, and some of you haven't. Some of you, this is the only video that you watched, and that is fine, but let me get you caught up. My name is Rand. I make documentaries about ordinary people to preserve their life stories and legacy for future generations of their family. Usually people leave their memories behind in memoirs, photo albums, but memoirs are really hard to write, and photo albums do not tell a complete story. With documentary-style interviews, you can see and hear the life stories straight from the person who lived them. And right now, you're watching a video series that shows someone how to do that, how to document their life stories on video with just their cell phone camera, totally for free. The second thing we need to do as an interviewer is to prepare for the interview. Luckily, your interviewee or your subject of the interview has already filled out this DocuFamily interview guide. This is a powerful tool that you get to use that makes your job very easy. This breaks down how someone tells a story about themselves, and there are 3 main components to it. The first component is the life chronology. These are the questions you ask your interviewee or your subject to give them a chance to talk about their life in an organized timeline. Usually this starts with stories as a child and moves through the memories and trials of becoming an adult and beyond. The second component are the life value questions. These are questions that have to do more with someone's fundamental life beliefs. How did they live a good life? Or what are some values like trustworthiness and honesty that people should base their life around? And these questions, your interviewee, your subject, is going to want you to ask them after the initial life chronology. Finally are the important historical events. These are events that have happened in your subject's lifetime, events that have impacted them usually in significant ways, and they will have marked down which events they want you to ask them about specifically. Now, that's a very basic summary of this guide. I organized this in the first place to be easy for you and the interviewee to follow along with, to fill out. It's very easy to understand. Now, one problem that you might come in contact with is that if you're holding on to this, which you should be, your interviewee may have forgotten what they have written down. Now, what you can do is you can give this to them, but one of the problems that you're going to end up is that someone will have written stories in this notebook, and just like I'm talking right now, the camera is pointed at the very top of my head, which is not a very flattering angle as I read off from my list. So ideally, what you want to do is you want to hold on to this, and you want to read them off a question. Did you have siblings growing up? What are their full names? Do you recall any fun or interesting stories with them? And someone might say, yeah, I remember my siblings' names, but I'm forgetting the stories that I wrote down. Read them the stories that they wrote down. And what that will cause them to do, they'll think of their stories, and then they'll talk to you like a normal person. They won't be reading off of a script. The idea of this is to make it a filmed conversation between you and the interviewee, not a scripted thing. This is merely to jog their memory. That's it. And it's for you to help them jog their memory. You do not want a 1-hour video of watching somebody read off a script like this. That defeats the purpose of what a interview-style documentary does. Again, this is very simple. Just read off the guide, let the guide do the work. Just prompt your interviewee. Very simple. Rule number 3, silence is golden. You're not just going to want to think about this. purely as a conversation between you and the interviewee. And the main reason behind this is that you are going to be off camera. You are going to be a distant voice. All of the attention, all of it should be on the interviewer, their stories, their memories, and what they have to talk about. The role you serve is to prompt them. Now, a very, very common thing to do in a conversation is to give someone feedback while they talk. This is a thing like if you hear somebody say something interesting, say something you're intrigued by, say, "Oh, really? Go on." Or they say something shocking, you say, "Wow, interesting." You want to avoid your little feedback comments like the plague. Do not, like the coronavirus, do not give them those little notices of feedback, because when the audience watches the video in 20 years, they hear those comments and it disrupts the actual flow of how they listen. It disrupts the way they listen to this video in many, many years. But you still need to give your subject feedback. You still need to let them know, hey, I'm here, I'm listening, I want to encourage you to keep talking, and I'm intrigued by what you're saying. And how do you do this without verbally recognizing what they're saying? It's very simple, very easy, but it's something you have to pay attention to while you're interviewing them. It's body language. It's very, very basic body language, and it's mostly in the face. Someone says something interesting, tilt your head, squint your eyes, put your hand, put it on your chin, lean in with your body slightly, lean back. What'd you say? Wow, tilt your head the other way. It's very simple. You'll actually find that you are instinctively good at using your body language to let your subject know that you are paying attention to them. You just have to pay attention to just not talking and to emphasize your body language while your subject is speaking. Finally, rule number 4, get your subject comfortable in front of a camera. This is going to be the hardest thing that you have to do because so many people are camera shy and have spent very little amount of their life in front of a camera. And the easiest way I've found to do this is to set the camera up quickly, actually start recording immediately, and then have a normal conversation. Don't even use this guide yet. Don't use it. Ask them how the weather is, how their day was, what they ate this morning. Very normal conversation. Have a normal conversation while the camera happens to be on. What this does is it allows your subject to talk about something very natural to them. How was their day? Very simple, very easy subject, and it doesn't have anything to do with this worksheet. What this does is it allows your interviewee to get used to talking on camera about something they're very comfortable talking about. How was their day? And the key point is that topic, how's their day, it's not related to anything in this guide. When people pick up this guide and they start viewing it, suddenly it becomes an actual film. I'm on camera. What do I do? What do I say? What was I supposed to talk about? People start to freak out a little bit, and that's the exact thing that you want to avoid. So how do you progress from that? Step 1, turn on the camera. Step 2, have a normal conversation and get them used to just talking on camera. And step 3, how do you bring in this first prompt? Tell us about your mother and father. What were they like? How do you bridge that gap between having a normal conversation and having something closer to a scripted conversation? It's very simple. Just memorize that first small statement. Tell me about your mother and father. What were they like? That's it. Very simple, smooth, and most importantly, quick. You just go from talking about the normal, how is their day, to tell me about your mother and father, what were they like? And that allows you to bridge this awkward gap between here we're talking about something normal and here we're suddenly going off the script. It's a very, very subtle statement that says, okay, let's begin. And that's it. You want to make it very smooth, very simple, and the exact same way, the very first question, tell me about your mother and father, what were they like, allows them to jump easily into their first story. Okay, so you've gone from introducing them to the camera to getting them comfortable, talking about something they would normally talk about in front of the camera, and then finally transitioning into the DocuFamily interview guide. So what do you do now? And that's rule number 5, be intrigued by your subject. Don't just go off this script. You hear a story, you ask questions. That's the natural thing to do. So ask follow-up questions when you hear something you're interested in. That's it. Okay, that is the end of video number 6 and the wrap-up of this DocuFamily interview series. I really hope I helped you conduct an interview or become a better interviewer. If I did, feel free to share this video. Or if you enjoyed this entire video series, feel free to share this video. Anyways, leave me your feedback, comments, and questions down below in the comment section. And until next time.
We'll just move on to the next subject.
You're right.
I do remember the best story how